that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney or current Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today, I have the last bit of my thoughts on Supernatural Encounters before I do my proper review of it. Though of course, that review won't be coming out for a while because it won't chronologically take place till after Darkness, so you won't see it for a while. But something that was released prior to Supernatural Encounters coming out, which was on Joe Bongiorno's website as well, was Cult Encounters. But Cult Encounters has been included at the end of this book. So I thought it worthwhile to mention, as there is some stuff that is relevant to the future of the expanding universe and whatnot. So I only have a couple things really to mention. Cult Encounters kind of begins with Lord Shadowspawn or Black Hole leaving a message to Darth Vader, so we can assume this happens obviously before episode 6, probably even before episode 5, probably either after episode 4 or before. And I forget which comic it was. I believe it was one of the comics by Alan Moore, because Alan Moore made all the weird stuff, but Vader is playing chess with this like squid being, and this guy comes in trying to kill Vader by trying to make him. This guy has a weird force ability where he's able to make people want to kill themselves, and it doesn't work, and so Vader ends up killing him. But that was a section, the Shamers, which is what we got to know more about in this section, which was a cool thing. It's also a very small thing, but we learned that Black Hole did have communications with Lumaya, which is fun. And then we have a whole section focused on Shadowspawn. There's a couple things that are talked about here. A lot of it we kind of already know, because as I said, this was written prior to Supernatural Encounters. A lot of this stuff was kind of leading up to the events of Supernatural Encounters, because, you know, you'll get mentions of these old gods or these old things and these myths and these legends that have taken root, you know. And of course that has all been expanded upon significantly in Supernatural Encounters. So if you read that already, this is kind of redundant, which is why I'd recommend, even though it's at the end of the book, if you're going to read Supernatural Encounters and you wanted to get like some sort of feel for what's going on, I would read Cult Encounters first, although there are some weird bits at the end, which we'll dive into. But we get more with Shadowspawn, and that's always a good time, because he's one of my favorite things that Matthew Stover, I mean, he didn't create the character because Black Hole existed in the old newspaper strips, but he really gave him life, I think, beyond certain things. And, you know, we deal more with the Sorcerers of Rand, of which he's a part of, because the Sorcerers of Rand is this whole sect, right, that believes in the dark. You know, when I did my review, or when I was doing my thoughts on it, in my book 5 thoughts, you know, I talked a lot about Black Hole and stuff with the dark, but still, I think it applies because, you know, he grew up with the Rand or whatever, and then he joined the Prophets of the Dark Side, but he believes in the dark as these beings believe in the dark. But where do they get this concept from? Also, Shadowspawn seems to believe this more in depth than even Rand does. So, but it was fun to get a little bit more understanding of Shadowspawn and to see more of him. So definitely cool. And then we have Revelations. This is a really weird part of the book, but it's clearly meant to be the end of everything. Now, I know there's Storyteller, which I think is the perfect, it's a Tales little short comic, and I think that's the perfect end to the franchise, absolutely. completely. But this can probably happen before that. I mean, the storyteller's story is supposed to happen like long into the future. So I could definitely see this happening before that. But we basically get this whole revelation account about what's going to happen at the end of the timeline with, all the dark, the forces that have been kind of talked about at length, but also not enough because it's still vague. These beings, this dark, as to me, it seems to be implying those are one of the same, the dark, and these dark gods of the Sith or whatever. And there are 7 seals that need to be broken in order for them to be able to unleash havoc upon the galaxy, and 2 of those have already been destroyed, one of those being Central Point Station. It wasn't just to house Abeloth. And so, a huge war of cosmic, biblical proportions that we saw at the beginning of Supernatural Encounters is now at the end of the timeline. Except this time, we've had all the Star Wars story to happen. So all the heroes of old, and especially the Skywalkers, the souls of them, minus, I guess, Jason, are there, and they're, Anakin Skywalker, Anakin Solo, Ben Skywalker, all of them are helping. They're kind of becoming the new stand-ins for the Celestials, or at least being helpful in that capacity, and they're helping that forefront. R2-D2 and C-3PO are still alive, they're still doing stuff, and it's a big war that needs to be won to defeat this darkness, to truly have peace before the universe starts again. Because then you get storytellers like danger erupts again, and a new hero picks up the mantle of saving the galaxy or whatever. It's a full circle. But I think as for the characters that we've known, for the characters that we've loved, for the expanded universe that we hold dear, that'd be a really cool end to it. That'd be like the only time you'd be able to go bigger than New Jedi Order, really, is this bit. Like, this is what I've been talking about. Like, Abeloth should have been that. Like, Abeloth should have been this larger-than-life threat that was able to make it feel just as big and as important as New Jedi Order, but it doesn't feel like that. It just doesn't. In Fate of the Jedi, it always feels like undercut. Like, it doesn't feel as big of a deal as it should feel. It should feel like the end of all things, but it doesn't. But then you read Supernatural Encounters and you realize Abeloth's kind of small potatoes in comparison to the dark beings around. So, there you go. There's your big end-all, be-all. There's your, and that would be into basically almost entirely new characters outside of R2-D2 and C-3PO, But it was a little weird. I also don't like certain things. This more so than anything in Supernatural Encounters, it's not explicitly stated, but it's implied that Han Solo and Indiana Jones are somehow related, and that felt very fan-fiction-y and just not right. And then there's this flat out at the end, it says that, they need to prepare everyone for this fight, because it's not only going to affect the Star Wars galaxy, it's going to affect anything and everything that the Supreme Maker and that the Celestials and Architects created. Anything and everything that exists will end if they don't stop these Dark Ones. And so R2-D2 and C-3PO go to George Lucas and tell him about the Star Wars story so that they can make the movies and we can know about it. Like, that's too far. But I can't give that as a diss necessarily to Supernatural Encounters because it's not in the story of Supernatural Encounters. Supernatural Encounters ends at around 940 pages. And then you have Cult Encounters, which is written first. Now, I mean, I guess he's just having fun, and it could always be retconned later by another writer. If, the EU ever gets continued, that's not the case. I don't know. There's a lot of things I can let slide within, like, Supernatural Encounters has some stuff, I'm like, but I accept it. Like, it's written better than I think here, where it's just blatantly, like, really? Why? And I don't mean any disrespect to Joe. I love Joe, and I know he'll watch this. But it's just, that was like I liked like the revelations aspect of seeing stuff that hasn't happened yet, like having these beings that have been talked about throughout all 940 pages, the dark, these dark beings, they're moving the shadows, they're doing stuff, they're killing our whole Hexaphon, all this stuff in the background, this bigger threat, making Abeloth seem like a petulant child, these real big threats being the end-all be-all to the end of the Star Wars timeline. I think that's great. Makes Crate look like a baby, makes Sidious look like a baby, makes Vader look like a baby, makes Abeloth look like a baby, makes every vitiate Valkorian from SWTOR look like nothing by comparison. So I think, that would be the perfect end-all be-all, like the biggest threat the Star Wars galaxy has ever faced. I guess they faced him before. We just didn't see it, because it was in the supernatural encounters with the supernatural beings, and the mortals didn't get involved. But I like that aspect. But then it says things like how it hints, at least, that Indiana and Han might be related, and then the whole, that was, no, but, fine. And then it's like, oh, they met the smartest man in this other galaxy, George Lucas, so he can write the movies. No, I'm no, I can't. That's too far. But this was also written first, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't like it personally. I think it's really. I think it's rather silly. But again, this is cult encounters, separate from supernatural encounters. I mean, it is a little addendum to it, but it's a separate discussion, basically. But yeah, so cult encounters, kind of a mixed bag. You don't really need it if you've read Supernatural Encounters, because it kind of goes over a lot of the stuff you'd already know. It does add some interesting tidbits, like knowing that Black Hole knew Lumaya, or getting, more context for some of the older strips, like explaining how this Force user had this specific niche power to, make people want to kill themselves, and stuff like that. That little addendum was interesting, but it talks about the gods, which if you read Supernatural Encounters, you already know about. The only thing really of substance that this provides to add on top of Supernatural Encounters is that Revelation ending, excluding some of those stupid things I mentioned. But more of a mixed bag for me. It's Supernatural Encounters is my third favorite Star Wars Expanded Universe book of all time. It's absolutely phenomenal. I have my gripes, but it is still overall a masterpiece. Cult Encounters, no disrespect, just Joe, just not as much for me. I don't like it as much. Definitely prefer Supernatural Encounters, though I do still think this is worth a read, if not only for the Revelations bit, which seems to imply that there's stuff that will happen in the future. Now maybe that'll be retconned to not be the case, but I think it would be really cool, to be the end-all be-all for the universe. But we'll see if the Expanded Universe ever gets continued, if they'll ever use anything from Joe's work to further establish things. Maybe we never go that far, and we never get to see it. So you can just speculate and make up your own fan theories about what that would be like. But for now, we are where we're at. And at least, in some way, shape, or form, Joe has shown me that Abeloth either dies by Luke's hand or one of the Jedi, but does not die forever for whatever reason, or they just never actually find her again, and she lives out the rest of her days because she's around during the time of this big conflict. So there's that. But it's sad though, because now I've done it again. I've read another piece of the Expanded Universe, and it's amazing, and I just want more stories. And I hope one day we're able to at least bridge the gap between that to Legacy. Maybe we never get to see this war that Joe alludes to. Maybe that will only ever be a vision in my head. But I would still like to fill in the gaps between Crucible and Legacy, because these characters deserve better. And we all want to see it. But that's pretty much it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Reading Joe's work has been an absolute joyride. I've absolutely had the time of my life. It's been so much fun. Thank you, Joe, for your hard work. Regardless of how I feel about Cult Encounters or anything, it's still been a joy to read everything. And, yeah, thank you all so much for watching. And may the Force be with you. Bye-bye.